last year. The car was not performing at the level they were hoping. The pressure was high. You come to the middle of the seasons and you get a new boss. There were all the reasons in the world with the new regulations coming for 2026, with the new power unit projects. There were all the reasons in the world to say, well, you know what, let's turn the page. 25 did not work. Let's concentrate on 26. You would have been mad to do anything differently, to want to do things differently. And the truth is, Tom, nobody wanted to do that in Milton Keynes. Nobody wanted to turn the page.
Welcome everybody to this week's F1 Beyond the Grid. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Laurent Mekies, team principal of Red Bull Racing. How are you? Lovely to see you again.
Very good to see you, Tom. It's been a while.
Well, it's been 2 years actually since you were last on the pod, and a lot has changed since then. You were just starting out as team principal of Racing Bulls back then. Amazing career trajectory since then. You're now running Red Bull Racing. Just sum up what's gone on in the last 2 years and how different your life is now.
You know what to say. It's been a bit of a crazy 2 years. But you know, as today, as in every other opportunities before, you know, you feel honored, you feel privileged, you feel lucky. In that case, to join such an incredible team. And to have a chance to, you know, to shoot for the wins again and for the fight for the titles again, and that's what we are loving, and that's what we dream of doing year after year, and to have this opportunity is incredible.
Can we talk about the job, right? Team principal at both places, but how different is the job at Red Bull Racing compared to where you were?
You know, the circumstances were very, very different. When I left Ferrari to join Racing Bulls, I had an imposed, you know, 7 or 8 months gardening leave, and obviously you are home. You only think about how you are going to tackle the next challenge. So you pretty much have these, you know, permanent iterations about how you will go about it, about what people you want to take with you in the adventures. Not to mention that I knew the team from 10 years before, you know, when I used to work there. So when the adventure starts, which is pretty much when we did the interview 2 years ago, when the adventure started, you are already in execution mode. You know, you are there. You have this plan. You reconnect with the people and you try to execute the plan. Starting with Oracle Red Bull Racing was the exact opposite of all that. So there was obviously no warning. There was nothing like having the time to think about it or pick up your team or referring to what you knew of the team from prior experience. So everything you knew about the team principal job, pretty much you have to throw it in the bin. And the only priority was, let's try to meet as many people as I can. Let's try to understand how this team is working. Let's try to see how we can support. And that's what have been the first few weeks and months, really trying to meet all the incredible people, opening all the doors of the campus in Milton Keynes, and try to see all the magic, all the secrets that his team is known for in inventing these fast cars and meeting the people behind it. So a complete different approach compared to what had been the debut in Racing Bulls. But you know, it's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling because it's we are in a people business. You meet incredible people. Getting this opportunity makes you meet unbelievable people, and you don't win as much as Oracle Red Bull Racing has won in the last 2 decades by luck. You win because you have geniuses behind every doors. And that's the privilege you have when you get that type of job is to get to know these people and try to support them.
So what is your job description? What is the most important aspect aspect of being team principal for you?
The only thing we do, you are going to be very disappointed. The only thing we do is to make sure our people have what they need to work. That's the only thing we do.
But what does that mean? It's like you're empowering people, right?
It means create the best working environment for your people to express their talents. So yes, it means empowering them as much as you can, and it means make sure that you have the right people and you keep the right people.
Politics. How much of it is politics? Because not only are you trying to make the fastest car, you're also trying to slow down the opposition, right?
We like, you know what, this team is striking me and I'm sure quite a few others in how close to pure racing it is. You know, every single person on the campus is trying to make the car 1,000 of a second faster and is obsessed about that. And all we try to do as a team principal, on top of the people aspect, is to make sure that our group is not disturbed or slowed down or distracted by what you call the politics, but can actually focus on what they love to do and what they are so good at. So really, is there a lot of politics in the job? Of course there is. But the way we look at it is, let's try to keep that to the minimum. Let's concentrate on getting a fast car. If you get a fast car, everything else gets sorted.
Christian Horner did the job before you for 20 years. How different is your way, do you think?
You know, at first you need to give a huge credit to Christian's. The results speak for themselves. They have been historical. And you know, Christian was leading that team, making it grow, and therefore, you know, hats off to what has been done. I don't think leadership style matters. You can find up and down the pit lane and in any business very, very different style of leadership. I think what matters is that as a leader, that you take care of your people, that you put them in the heart of the project, and that you get them the environment for them to express this talent. And that's what matters. How you do that, in which style do you do that, really doesn't, only the results will tell.
Talking of results, just how sweet were those wins in the back end of last season? How did that make you feel?
You know, it made me feel so happy for the girls and the guys in the team because they had such a difficult start of the season last year. The car was not performing at the level they were hoping. The pressure was high. You come to the middle of the seasons and you get a new boss. There were all the reasons in the world, with the new regulations coming for 2026, with the new power unit projects, there were all the reasons in the world to say, well, you know what, let's turn the page. 25 did not work. Let's concentrate on 26. You had really, you would have been mad to do anything differently, to want to do things differently. And the truth is, Tom, nobody wanted to do that in Milton Keynes. Nobody wanted to turn the page. They all wanted to get to the bottom of that 25 car, get to the bottom of what didn't work to the level expected, and turn things around. And yes, they knew there would be a price to pay for later, but that's how deep is the fighting spirit in the team. And so when they all put the extra effort to try to understand what was limiting us, try to bring upgrades and solutions to cure the issues we had, taking huge amount of risk in doing so. It has not been a smooth second part of the year. We had the many wins, but we also had extremely painful races. I'm sure you recall Zandvoort or Budapest or maybe Saturday in Brazil. And so all these successes came with that incredible spirit of the teams there that didn't want to give up. All the successes came from the massive risk-taking that the team had to take in that short amount of time to turn things around. So to your point, when you eventually win, the thoughts are for the incredible spirit of the people and the hard work they've put into it.
That's a pretty big shout for you, though. You've just come in the job and you're having to say, okay, we're going to stick with the 25 car and not put everything on 26. I assume that came down, you ultimately had to make that call within days of getting the job.
But that was easy because nobody wanted to give up.
And do you think you're paying the price this year for that?
You know, we thought, and we still think it was the right thing to do, because we felt that turning the page to 26 would have been a little bit of an easy escape and a wishful thinking that next year will be better, even though we didn't fully understand what were the limitations of 25. We didn't think it was the right way. Now, of course, the time and energy we invested for the late push last year, does it have an impact on where you start 26? Of course it does. So, of course, we pay a bit of the price today. Do we use it as an excuse? No. We are not happy with the starting point. But we think we will get through these difficulties. We will, as we did last year, we will get the full understanding of the limitations. And this team has been very, very good in turning things around, and we have another chance to do it this year.
Do you think then that this is a period of transition for Red Bull Racing? The reason I ask that is obviously you've gone from the ultra successful partnership with Honda. You've now got powertrains. We'll come on to more of that later, but also a lot of the senior personnel have changed, gone. I mean, you've replaced Christian, Helmut's gone, Adrian Newey's gone, Craig Skinner's gone, Will Courtney's gone, Checo Perez. We sort of go on, right? Does it feel that you're in transition, or is there enough depth to be able to carry on as you were, if you like?
We try to do everything we can to make sure this is not a transition year, despite the size of the challenge, despite the new power unit challenge, despite the changes you have mentioned. We want to make sure that we are not in a transition year, Tom. So we want to make sure that we don't say, well, you know what, 2026 was the transitions between chapter A and chapter B, and therefore, no. We are not at all in that mode. We are in full attack mode, as we said, not happy about the starting point. But if you walk in Milton Keynes right now, there is fire in every single department. There is a burning fire of wanting to go back as fast as possible to a more competitive car, to a better positions, and you know, we exited we finished the pre-season testing thinking we were 4th teams, even though you guys didn't believe us. It hurts. We don't want to stay there, and that's what you feel in Milton Keynes today, is that burning drive to get enough understanding and development to the car in a way that we can outperform the development of the competition and get back up. So it doesn't look like a transition year.
When you say you're the 4th fastest team, I do believe you. Is it the power unit holding you back? Is it the chassis holding you back? Just when you compare yourselves to Mercedes, for example?
Look, we think it's 360. So we don't think there is one area or another that is to be focused on. This, as such, is already an incredible achievement. The fact that the power unit is not identified as being a specific weakness, but more simply an area like every other area to be improved in order to be at the level of the benchmark, which is Mercedes today, is already as such an incredible achievement. The fact that, you know, this power unit was not existing 3 or 4 years ago, the factory was not existing, we had no people, and now we are 700 people there. We have this incredible partnership with Ford, and we turned up at the first race, and it felt very normal. And the only thing we are looking at is gap to first place, you know, which is substantial now, But that's, we are all pointing towards looking at what we need to do to close that gap. So it's not one area. As you said, we have pushed very late on the chassis development last year. So yes, we pay a price in the initial phase of the seasons. The engine project is super new. The guys and the girls have done an unbelievable job. But of course, we accept that competition is at a better level right now, and it's going to be a learning race, 2026, and it's going to be a development race, and it's two races that we embrace and we are diving into.
Has the performance of the PU surprised you in a pleasant way?
Let me put it this way: seeing the car exiting the garage in Barcelona, first preseason test day, without any shakedown. We are one of the few teams, if not the only one, not to have shakedown before Barcelona. Seeing that car getting out at 9:00 in the morning and doing 100 laps on that first day, I think was an incredible reward for the work that everyone has been doing in Milton Keynes, days and night, weekends. It's been a very, very intense last few months. It's been very intense last 3 or 4 years. Certainly the last few months, I can guarantee you that they were very far from comfort zone, and a lot of extra efforts from everyone, from the family to support also their partner in long hours at work, and to see that cars going out, and to see that suddenly we only talk about performance, and we only talk about chasing the 3 teams that are faster than us right now is an incredible achievement.
This episode is sponsored by Car Gurus. If you've ever tried to find the right car online, you'll know it can quickly turn into a bit of a rabbit hole. You start with a rough idea of what you want, and before you know it, you're comparing models, features, and prices, and end up more confused than when you started. That was certainly my experience when I was last looking to buy one. Car Gurus helps you cut through all that uncertainty by giving you the information you need to shop with confidence. Car Gurus is the only site in the UK that shows you a deal rating on every car, from great to overpriced. So instead of guessing, you can quickly see how the price stacks up based on things like the car's condition, mileage, and features. It gives you full car specs, vehicle history, price change information, and dealer reviews, so you can feel confident you're getting a great deal. And with hundreds of thousands of cars from top-rated dealers, it makes it much easier to find the right one. You can even get real-time alerts for price drops and new listings. So join the millions who have already found their best deal with Car Gurus. Go to cargurus.co.uk for complete vehicle details without any surprises. That's Car Gurus, cargurus.co.uk. cargurus.co.uk. Car Gurus, search, buy, sell, sorted. I'm talking to the engineer in you now. Can you tell us a little more about the scale of the project for powertrains? I mean, how big a job was it to get that up and running? So much praise, and rightly so, has been put on Cadillac starting a Formula One team from scratch. How big a job is it to start your own powertrains company?
Look, I think it's a crazy challenge. I think it's a crazy decisions to be made to decide to do your own power unit. It's probably the sort of decision that only Red Bull can take. It's a sort of decision that is very close to Red Bull DNA. You try to do something that looks impossible, and you eventually make it happen. So it's a challenge we are proud of. Again, hats off to everyone who was there 3 or 4 years ago and kickstart the project. And with the Red Bull ambition, with the Red Bull visions, made it happen. Now we are more than 700 people in that power unit entity. The best way to describe it is that we already forget that we are a new power unit manufacturers, and we are looking at the last few kilowatts that we are missing compared to competition, and we are looking at the next optimizations in order to be able to close that gap.
And when you look at how the PU division is integrated with the rest of the team. Is it very different to Ferrari? Because of course you spent 5 years at the Scuderia. Is it a very different setup that you have?
Actually, I still remember being at Ferrari when the decision of Red Bull doing their own power unit with Ford at the time was made public, and we looked at each other and we said, "Whoa, how incredible, how difficult that must be to start from zero." Because we were saying, "Look, we are having our own meeting to talk about the next generation of power unit that we will all have to design and produce. And then when we leave the meeting room, we go back to the departments, and the department starts working on this project." We say, "These guys, they have to build it from scratch. There is no, they may have the meetings together to decide what they want to do next, but certainly when they go back to their departments, there is nothing there yet." And we say, how crazy that must be. So, to your question about how different it is, it's, even though it's only us and Ferrari now having both power unit and chassis on the same site, the projects are completely different, because one have been doing it for 90 years, and we have been doing it for
90 days.
90 days, no, not 90 days, but for 3 years now, and for not even 90 days in racing. So that's how different and difficult it is.
You say that it's something only Red Bull would do. Does that imply that Red Bull's commitment to Formula One is greater today than it's ever been?
I think it does imply that, absolutely, Tom. That's what it means. When Mr. Mateschitz took the decisions to do the Red Bull Ford powertrain, of course, it's a decision that automatically link Red Bull with the sport for a huge number of years to come. And hence it creates another layer of bond between Red Bull and Formula One. We had one team, we had two teams, we had the circuit, etc., in Austria, and now the power unit operation. So of course, it's been an incredible journey for Red Bull with Formula One in the last 22 years, and it's one that is meant to continue.
You told me once, I think, that Red Bull have, is it 60 different sporting entities? Am I right? Is that the right figure? 62 maybe? Is Formula One the biggest of those? I guess it is with powertrains, but in terms of the sort of marketing objectives, is Formula One still the biggest?
Yes, it is. That's the short answer. So, Red Bull footprint in the sport, in global sport in general, is unique, and it goes from football to rugby to Formula One, of course, to hockey, and to so many sports, so many images that come to your mind when you think about Red Bull in the sports, depending on how much risk you want to put in the sports that you are doing. But yes, it's the biggest single project. Oracle Red Bull Racing is the biggest single project, yes.
And you have, if not the single biggest driver on your books, one of the sport's biggest stars in Max Verstappen. Let's talk about the drivers. Let's talk about Max first of all. You've been getting to know him over the last 6 months, 9 months. What impresses you the most about the four-time champ?
The biggest surprise is how deep the connections between Max and motorsport and Max is. He's not just a Formula One driver. He lives night and day for the sport. He completely understands the complex dynamics of a Formula One car and of a Formula One team. You leave him a few hours of freedom, he will go and race on his simulator. You give him a few days of freedom, he will go and race whatever he can find on the planet. And having somebody like that can support you driving the car development, especially through new regulations like the one we have today, is a huge advantage.
Sounds like you'd be a good team principal one day, right?
I'm sure he could be an excellent team principal one day, and that probably applies to many other different jobs in motorsport.
He said on many occasions that one of the aspects is he loves working with the team. Can you see that? Is he a natural leader?
You know, Max has this. I still didn't decide if it is a conscious or unconscious skills that he have, but he has this natural way to get people around him to understand what is important for him in the car and what is, according to him, the biggest lap time reservoir that are untapped around him. And he knows that when he speaks into a debriefing, he not only have the 30 engineers around him in the room, but also all the ones that are connected back in the factory in Milton Keynes. And he has this natural way to drag everyone behind him and to get people to give the 101%. And it's something to be fast in the car. It's something else to be outside of the car and to manage to get your team, your people, to give their very best in trying to understand and to solve the limitations that you have. And it's very nice to say now in a quiet room, but for him to be able to do that a few minutes after he's driving the car, and it can be a qualifying session, it can be a race that could have had a bad or a good outcome, and to be able to do that with the level of discipline he has, with the level of cold feedback he's able to give is outstanding. And if you come to one of the debriefing we have after our sessions, after qualifying or after the race, you would not be able to understand from his tone of voice if it was a win or if it was a DNF that you won't forget about.
Because he's already moved on to the next race.
Because he will describe it with the same intensity, because he will analyze the issue and the limitations with the same discipline, whether he has won the race or whether he has been outperformed by competition.
You keep using the word discipline when you talk about Max. Can you just tell us a little more about what you mean by that? His discipline in terms of how he, the thoroughness in which he talks about the car, or the discipline with which he lives his life to dedicate it to the team and to Formula One? What do you mean by it? It's both really.
Max is unbeatable at everything he does. Try to
Paddle.
No, I'm not talking about paddle. I don't know about paddle, but if you ask him to come to a marketing event or a sponsor event, or he will do it with the same discipline and the same dedication than he does his debriefing. He knows it's important. He knows it's part of the jobs. He knows there is a bigger picture behind the emotion he has at that moment, and he's going to give the best version of himself in all these circumstances. And I can only imagine that he's able to do that because he has that mental structure, mental discipline that allows him to perform. And sometimes we have a bad quality, we have a bad race, and I don't feel like talking because that's how the emotions flows in some of the bad moments, and you need a few seconds to digest and to go back to supporting your team. And he's obviously going through the same emotional sequence as any of the team members, but he is able to do that at an extraordinary level. And when he gets out of the car, comes to the office, he's going to go back to the cold analysis of what needs to be improved.
What about inside the car? When you look at his data, What's he doing? Where you just go, that's amazing. Is there one aspect of the way he drives on the limit that leaves you open-mouthed?
The consistency with which he is showing extraordinary speed without making any mistakes, session after sessions, qualifying session after qualifying sessions, race after race, is probably the most outstanding part. Is that he's not going to get it wrong.
Is he the best driver you've ever worked with?
Comparisons are always going to be difficult, but you don't have many Max around.
And are you worried, genuinely worried, that if he isn't enjoying Formula One, he's been quite outspoken about the regulations, are you genuinely worried he'll walk?
I have full confidence that as a sport, we have the tools to tweak the regulations so that they are coming back closer to flat out qualifying, whilst keeping all the positive aspects that we see from the racing we have seen in the first couple of races. And I think if we do that, I have every confidence that Max will keep seeing what we all see, is that you still have the best 22 drivers in the world there. You'll have the fastest car on the planet, and it's the most competitive environment, and he's ultimately a competitor.
And does he understand too that he'll be a long time retired? The GT3 racing, the Nürburgring is fantastic, and I can see he's having a lot of fun, but he will be a long time retired if he walks away early.
We are not having the retirement talk with Max right now. We are having the hardcore analysis of how to go faster with our car. And he's passionate about the sport, and he wants to contribute to the sport and to make sure the sport lands in the right place. And hence he's vocal about the tweak he thinks we need to do. Again, to as a driver, to make sure that he can be flat out in qualifying, and to make sure he can have the good racing. And we are not having retirement discussions.
A lot of drivers' contracts are up for renewal at the end of 26. Do you think you're going to have a battle on your hands to keep Max?
You need to come to Milton Keynes to see, as we said, the fire behind every door. And you will soon realize why I'm smiling right now, because we don't think about driver market in 27. We think about getting a fast car. And if we get a fast car, there is no discussion about what Max is doing next year, and hence we are focused on that.
Can we talk about Isack? You work with him at Racing Bulls. How different a driver is he 12 months on?
Isack is in a great place right now. He has done, I think, everything he could have done to maximize its integration with the team. He moved to London in the early days of January. He's at the factory every other day. He spends as much time as he can in the simulator, try to understand, all the engineering part around the car. He has been as keen as you can be. I think he even flew back between the two Bahrain tests just to try more stuff on the simulators, and flew back to Bahrain. So, credit to him for the level of commitment. But the truth is, he's not making an effort. That's what he loves to do. He has been living, dreaming about that moment for a long time, and for him, it's his dream. It's our dream to be able to spend time and energy in the simulator or with the engineer. So he has been doing that very intensely. He has been able to show the right speed straight away. I'm sure he will remember about his first qualifying with us with a P3 in Melbourne. And it's a long season. There will be up and down. we believe drivers make steps, and we expect steps from Isack this year, and we think he has all the right talents and all the right approach to be able to make these steps.
You mentioned his P3 in qualifying in Melbourne. He came into the post-quali press conference and he wasn't happy, which I found quite extraordinary, really. I thought it would be a big moment for him. He presented himself very well. He'd been very reliable for the team after Max had gone out early. Do you think he puts himself under too much pressure? He's very intense, isn't he?
You know, the amount of pressure you put on yourself doesn't depend on the environment. It depends on how competitive you want to be. And he's a very competitive person, and that's what you need. That's all the fast guys are like that. You can also apply that to the team, you know, and there is no happy faces until you win the race. And I think it's a little bit what you saw with Isack. At first, it's fair to say that it was the first qualifying of the year. These cars are not exactly easy to drive or easy to manage. And we are all learning a lot, teams, drivers, on how to deal with the first qualifying or the first lap to the grid or the first race start or the first battle. And so it's quite a different situation, Tom, compared to last year qualifying sessions where the drivers optimize run after run. You know, you get 5 or 6 runs in qualifying and you get to optimize and to get closer to the absolute perfect lap, and you eventually get that perfect lap and it puts you to whatever position it puts you, no? Nobody felt that in Melbourne. Maybe the Mercedes drivers, but nobody else felt that in Melbourne. It was a battle of learning, laps after laps during quali, because we were all learning, teams, drivers. And I'm sure it didn't feel perfect for any of the guys out there. And hence, what you saw from him after qualifying, apart because as a competitive person, you are only going to be happy with the ultimate positions, and apart because it was very different situation to last year and very far from ideal for everyone having to deal with the new regs.
Really interesting explanation. Can you take us now into a debrief? I mean, you got the two drivers sitting there. You talked about Max and how he debriefs after a session with the engineers, very disciplined. Is Isack the same?
You cannot think that it is the same after 10 years in Formula One, 4 world titles, and your second year in Formula One, first year in a top. It cannot be the same. I would lie to you if I was telling you it's the same. They of course describe the car with their own words and describe the balance, with the same discipline, if it is what you're referring to. But rightly so, Isack is trying to stick to his feeling of the car right now, because that's what he should be doing with the relatively limited experience he has. Whilst Max, after all these years and all this success, is very often trying to go to the next step in helping us linking what he feels with what he think may be the reason for it in the car.
Do they both want the same thing from the car? Can they drive with the same setup? I remember Checo Perez saying that he just couldn't drive Max's car. Is that a similar situation now, or can Isack and Max, do they want the same thing?
It's probably early days. Again, back to the qualifying chat. It's early days because the cars, certainly our car, is so far, and when I say car, I say, chassis plus power unit. It's so far from the ideas we have had in the past years of the perfect car, ideal lap. We are so far right now. It's too early to say I want that from the car or that from the car, because we are very, very far from ideal. So ask me the questions again in a few races.
Okay. Fair point, though. Fair point. When we're talking young drivers, and I include the Racing Bull guys, Liam and Arvid as well, how different is their world this year without Helmut Marko around? Do you think there's not less pressure, but well, certainly fewer phone calls at 7 a.m. maybe, but how different is the young driver program now without Helmut?
I'm pretty sure they are still talking. maybe not at 7 a.m., but maybe a bit later in the day. Helmut has remained very open and available to us. I'm sure we are all. I am. They are. I'm sure we are all having chats with him and getting guidance for him. Even though you don't see him turning up at the racetrack. I think back to your earlier point, the level of pressure you put on yourself is the one dictating how you feel about things. It's very rarely coming from outside circumstances or person. So I don't think they are putting less pressure on themselves now, because as racing drivers, you will never be happy until you are at the right level. But you can't turn the page of Helmut that has been building this young driver program for 2 decades with incredible success. You don't turn that page quickly. So we are living on his legacy right now. And as I said, he's behind the corners if we need him.
The 4 Red Bull drivers are incredibly talented. There's no doubt about that. Can I ask you, just when you look bigger picture at Formula One as a whole, for someone who's been in the sport a long time, Laurent, what do you think of the strength in depth in terms of the driving quality in Formula One at the minute? Do you think this is perhaps the best it's ever been?
Personally, yes. I think it's the best grid it's ever been in terms of overall quality of the drivers. I don't think it's something that is happening this year, but I think in general, the level of the grid has been increasing years after years. That's how I perceive it. I think it's equally true for the teams. So the teams have been becoming bigger and stronger machines year after year. There is no weak teams anymore. You have 11 giants. You don't have small teams anymore. It's enough to look at the size of the teams, but also at the names and the brands we are representing for each of these teams. So I think the sports have had an incredible expansions that reflects on one side in the global audience and in the incredible fan base we now have. On the other side, in the level of competitions with these 11 giants, and yes, probably the 22 best drivers.
And do you think the best drivers are still able to shine with the 26 regs?
That's what we need to safeguard. I think you will always have different taste about whether you like the new format of racing that these regs are giving us, or whether you don't like it. I think what is key is that we ensure that the best drivers will be at the top. And there is probably one area where we need to focus our attention more is to make sure that in qualifying, flat out driving, going as fast as you can in the corner, braking as late as you can, is still rewarded. And that's what we are working with all the stakeholders right now.
And that's track specific as well. I mean, with the regs exactly as they are now, if we go to Monaco, if we go to Singapore, the extra torque we're getting out of the corners now, I think Q3 in Monaco is going to be mouth-watering, right? The Maxes, the Charles Leclercs, I can't wait to see them around Monaco.
You're right. The truth is that we are still learning so much about how to go fast with these cars that each track is a challenge on its own. And we are in Japan today, there is a lot of question mark about how to go faster on here. We will get to the city tracks of Monaco. We will get to the first wet race. And you will see large differences between those who get it straight away and those who don't. And I want to say that I'm referring both to teams, power unit manufacturers, and drivers. So at the moment, it's a huge challenge every time the car gets out. And there is a great aspect that comes with it and the great amount of unknown that comes with it. As a sport for the big pictures, we again need to make sure that in that unbelievable challenge that produces incredible racing, that we are sure that the fastest drivers will come on top.
Well, and when you look at the intra-team battles between drivers in teams, the ones that were the quicker last year are invariably still the quicker. So even now we're seeing, I think, the best drivers are still able to shine. So there isn't so much to improve.
I think the regs have produced quite incredible two races to watch, certainly very surprising two races to watch, probably to an extent that it would have been difficult to predict that we would have seen so many actions and so many overtaking in the first two races. We know we have elements that we want to improve because we want flat out racing, certainly in qualifying, and we want to make sure that the fast drivers always come on top. But I think as a sport, we have all the tools between Formula One, the FI, the teams. We have all the tools to make sure we hit the right balance. Let's not forget that we are dealing with the biggest regulation change in the history of the sport. And it's a big enough regulation change to pose serious challenges to these giants that we are as team. And I think it's a good reminder of the size of the challenge. And it's, we can concentrate on the excitement that comes from that and make sure we fix what we have to fix.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago, we're speaking at Suzuka. I remember this race last year, Yuki's first race with Red Bull Racing. There was such a fanfare around him, and there still is this year. Is there a way back for Yuki in Formula One? How do you see his short and medium term future?
Yuki is doing a great job with us as not only as a reserve driver but also as a simulator driver. It's great to have somebody that has such deep recent experience of the cars that can help us behind the scene. Of course, we wish for him that there is an opportunity that comes soon, because racing drivers are meant to race, and that's what we wish for Yuki. And we are conscious that we haven't been as strong as we would have liked in the past in terms of the second car performance at Oracle Red Bull Racing, and it's something we are taking the learnings. We are trying to improve day after day, and it's fair to say that Yuki has shown significant speed in the past, and we wish for him that another opportunity comes along the way.
Well, Laurent, thanks for your time. It's been great to chat. Just before we go, we're coming into the spring break with neither the Bahrain nor Saudi Arabian Grand Prix taking place in April. How is Red Bull Racing approaching the break? In a way, do you welcome it, a chance to just regroup back at base, do some analysis, get those upgrades ready for Miami? Do you welcome it? Do you wish? How are you approaching the next 5 weeks or so?
Only looking at the sporting aspect of it, no, without judging the gravity of the events, of course. But it's clear that it's been, such a short winter for all the team with the new power unit again, with the new regs, that the chance to regroup is certainly welcome at that stage of the season. If you add to that, the fact that, competition is ahead right now, so we are the fourth team right now, and therefore that time to to go deeper into the data, to go deeper into the root cause of where we think the gaps are coming from, and to have a chance to slightly alter the development route to catch up quicker. We think it's an opportunity. I think it will be a bit like a second season launch when we are back to the track in Miami, because of course every team is engaged into this massive development race. So you will see every car on the grid changing significantly with upgrades in Miami. So we will only be as good as we are relative to the others, and it's going to be a new starting point, and one that will certainly start to give indications about where the season is going.
Well, that was my last question. We're going to know more in Miami, obviously. Are you still thinking the championship's on?
2 races ago, we were questioning whether or not the engine would allow us to get out of the pit lane and compete decently. Now we are in the fight. We are last of that top teams group, being fourth. But it's too early to think about the championship. We think, yes, the gaps to Mercedes are very substantial. It's probably around 1 second a lap, which is, huge in Formula One terms. But we equally think that you will see the car changing a lot throughout the season, not just in Miami, but in the races after. And success or failure will be dictated by how quickly you bring your development and how successful those developments are. It's not a given that all the steps that you are bringing to the track will improve your car performance, and therefore it's going to be the result of that development race that will dictate which position we are shooting for.
Well, for you, I hope it's like the second half of 2025. Laurent, thank you as ever for your time. Great to chat.
Thanks, Tom.